up and down the country looking for obia, and your perspiration smells so strong. Well,
greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me, and happy Easter for tomorrow, or happy Passover, or happy whatever else you wish, or just happy Saturday today. Easter Saturday, Passover Saturday, it's also a Muslim holy day. So, whatever your religion or lack of it, I wish you well. And now I have a little bit of entertainment for you. Now, for legal reasons, I am going to have to say that I am making no assertions, but somebody who knows a certain couple very well has whispered something to somebody who knows me very well, and I am going to enact a scene that is taking place on what we can call the hopeless Raj. I don't know how you could have done that to me. I mean, I just don't understand it. I mean, you failed me. How could you have failed me like that? I just don't understand it. I mean, look at what you've caused. Look at this mess. But it's not my fault. I didn't do anything. Why is it that I can never please you? When I always try my very, very best to please you. Look at what you've done. I mean, you've made a mockery of me. You just made me into a laughing stock in front of the whole wide world. How could you have done this to me? I mean, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to face anybody again, and certainly not at the coronation. But you've got to come to the coronation. You've got to come. You absolutely have to come. We've got to go. It's absolutely essential for all sorts of reasons. Well, you know, money doesn't matter to me. So if that's what you're thinking about, it's got nothing to do with the money. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be selling my soul for Netflix. But it's also our duty. Duty? What are you talking about? Duty to that bunch of racists? Duty. Everybody in that country hates me. They hate me. I mean, your press called me black. Look at me. Does this look black to you? I'm as white as Mickey. Except, of course, when I bronze up. How could you do this to me? I can't show my face in front of the world. You made a total laughing stock of us. Oh, but you, please, you've got to come. You're going to. It's going to ruin us if you don't go. I just can't. You know, ever since I've met you, I've been reduced to tears from the word go. Do you remember the first time that you reduced me to tears? When you asked me about those awful stories about what everybody was talking about me. You said that the press were going to say that I used to do something on yachts. I can't remember what I was supposed to do because, of course, it's so alien to me. I mean, I'm just a sweet and just hard-working little girl and always was. I can't believe that you ruined my life. Well, and I gather that what's going to happen, everybody believes, at the 99th hour, she's going to do a vote farce, and she's going to, well, I love you so much that I suppose I'll make the sacrifice for you, but it's a real sacrifice. I've just been so terrified ever since I got linked up with you. My whole life's been ruined. Ruined. I would now be the most popular person on Suits if it hadn't been for you. And now everybody says I'm the most unpopular woman on earth. It's just not right. And look how hard I've tried. I'm such a humanitarian. I work at least an hour a week for the good of the world, and the rest for you and me. Well, maybe it's you and you. Yeah, well, you say that to me after all I've done for you. Look at all the sacrifices I've made for you. According to what I've been told, that's a fairly accurate enactment of a likely scene which is going to end in a certain noble creature making the ultimate sacrifice and coming to England. Now the question is she gonna show up svelte and sleek, bejeweled, with, of course, everything with the label that's going to go onto some website? Or is she going to, because some people think that she might be malignant and that she might show up in a state of malignancy. Well, mean people say that the malignancy, and this is a lot of speculation taking place in print and in writing, as well as conversationally, that the stress and strain of it all might bring on a miscarriage. Isn't that going to be thus something else again? It's just going to be awful. Can we believe any of this? Or can we just think, well, this is all so farcical, we may as well just use it as laughter. But watch this space, because my understanding is that there is now outrage at the discourtesy and the way they have been playing the system. Well, of course, it suits them and their followers. And I'm now going to read out something from C.S. MacFarlane, who said, "If Meghan is being given a Women of Vision award, then those who are bestowing it should have gone to Specsavers." Well, I don't agree with you, C.S. MacFarlane. I think Meghan is a woman of great vision. She is like the panther that has lain in wait patiently one bottle of wine and a load of junk food in her bed at a time to cope with disappointment, until she saw a delicious-looking masculine antelope walk by, and she thought, that will make a good meal, and pounce. I just love Trev. Corey doesn't only make delicious food, he is delicious food. Munch. Well, I just love gingers. Just love them. And I can't think of anything I like more than munching on H. Delicious meals. So no, I think to be a huntress of that caliber requires acute vision and the talent to know when to pounce. I just don't think much of it could be called feministic or humanitarian. And as for the label feminist nowadays, I thought pretty much every woman is a feminist. I mean, I don't think we have much of a choice, do we? Because what some people would have called the good old days when a woman got married and she was bound in chains of gold and laying low with plush furs are long since over. Women have to deliver. Women have to work. Women have to produce. And even if they don't have to, they want to. Two of my closest female friends are very rich women, and both of them work. They love working. Now, I'm not a rich woman, but I love working too. None of us would say that we are feminists. However, in the Meganian terms and in the Gloria Steinem terms, we are exemplars of feminism. And we need to remember that Meg's baby is also an exemplar of femininity. That's right. KJE5261 says, do you think William was uncomfortable about nutmeg? He looks it in some photos. That's a very good question, and my understanding is that William has always been acutely uncomfortable around Meghan and about Meghan. William is too well grounded to have been duped, and he wasn't, evidently. Not from the word go. And I also understand that William and Catherine, according to somebody who knows them, were never fans of suits and never looked at suits. And if they looked at suits, it was once or twice, but they were never fans of suits. And they were not bedazzled and impressed that Harry had landed this great big star from Suits, number 6 on the call sheet. A supporting member of the cast, not even a lawyer. I throw that in for what it's worth. And yes, the photographs tell a tale. Susie Q says, According to Taz has pointed out that Giles Coren started the rumour by tweeting about the affair in quotes as a joke after a boozy lunch. She then points out that this same Giles Coren, a few months before his tweet, had spent a few days partying with Meghan and Harry in Amsterdam at, drumroll, the Soho House in Amsterdam. Then in brackets, Alison Boshoff, Daily Mail, 26 September 2018. As Arsenio Hall used to say, things that make you go, Well, Susie Q, that's very interesting because that accords with the information I have been given. And I have been very careful how I have presented this. But without accusing anybody of anything, Giles Coren got that story from somewhere. And I can tell you, there are only one or two people in whose interest it has ever been to spread that story and keep it spreading and continually spreading it like so much manure revisited and rehashed. Incidentally, I have a lot of respect for Alison Boshoff as a columnist. She is a friend of mine, and this friend of mine has a very high opinion of her. I've only met her, but she's a charming woman and evidently very sound. Coincidence? Or do we go with what Sigmund Freud used to say? There is no such thing as a coincidence. Now, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But does the Nile have a source? I leave you with that thought. Claudia Martin, Real Estate Miami, love it, says, I understand that the IPP status that they are treated as diplomats, meaning that they can almost do whatever they want, and I think that is what they are pursuing. Well, IPP status is internationally protected person status, and it does have many privileges. I suppose you could say it has some degree of overlap with dignitaries and diplomats. So to that extent, you're right. And yes, it does accord those who hold it a tremendous degree of latitude and privilege. It also means that the country where they are pays for their security. And if you have investigated Meghan's history, you can see that she has been demanding security from before anybody knew who she was. You know, she'd have to check into hotels under a nom de guerre, not even a nom de plume, in case the legion of fans who didn't exist might recognize her and bother her. You couldn't make any of this up. She clearly didn't understand what fame was all about. Because no matter whether you check into a hotel or not under a nom de plume, if you're famous, you walk out into the lobby and everybody recognizes you. And nowadays they even ask you for selfies. Sometimes even when you're being filmed, as happened to me day before yesterday. I was being filmed for something in London. There were people who recognized me asking for selfies. And there is Meghan thinking that all she needed to do was say, I need to be anonymous, and she would be protected. I mean, this desire for protection is actually a sign of, in my opinion, quite a serious disorder. It also shows you have a skewed attitude to life, because you don't need protection against life. Ever. Rarely. You might need protection when you are being attacked unfairly, but what you need is a good defense, whether you are being attacked fairly or unfairly. And if you are fairly attacked, the good defense doesn't usually wash, which I think is something she and Harry might be beginning to discover. Hence, of course, why they then want to shut the whole world down, so that the only people who can say anything about them are people who say nice things about them, and nobody else is allowed to speak. IPP status, it's also for security. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember the good old days when I used to walk into CBS and go up to Bill Paley's office, totally uninterruptedly. Enter, his secretary would offer me a seat. I would be shown into Bill Paley's office. No palaver. He was the head of CBS. He was one of the hugest titans, really, of television at the time. I'm speaking about in the early and mid-70s. He was a huge, huge name. He didn't have any security. Security didn't exist in those days. Nobody needed it. And when all this nonsense about security started, I said, well, of course, it's the unimportant setting themselves up to pretend they're important by creating a buffer zone between themselves and the rest of the world. And sure enough, to a large extent, that is what it was and remains, and still remains. It's all self-assertiveness. Look how important I am. Do you think Meghan would want IPP status or security if it didn't spell out how important she is? If a lack of security was the yardstick for importance, believe me, my dear, she would be running around without any of it. CB says, Hi, Lady C. The official invitation has come out, and on it is written King Charles III and Queen Camilla. Can you explain why Prince Philip was not King Philip, but Queen Camilla is not Princess Camilla? Sorry if you have already covered this in a previous video. I am a fairly new subscriber and am slowly making my way through all of them. Thank you. You have an awful lot of terrain to cover, my dear, if you're going to be covering all of the episodes that I've done. It's 400 and something. I would recommend that you put fast forward on many a button. really. But if you want to go through them all, what can I say? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, to answer the question. At the end of this question, I'm going to post the invitation that I issued for the Castle Goring Coronation Ball, which is a classical, standard invitation. The script, the layout, everything is absolutely traditional and correct. I had to struggle to make sure that it was done correctly, because every time I did a dummy of it and sent it off, somebody decided they were going to update it. And I said, I'm awfully sorry. With invitations, there is no latitude whatsoever. It is either correct or it is incorrect. It's like pregnancy or virginity. It's an absolute state. Well, in Britain, I should say first, you will notice on my invitation, which was done about 2 months ago, that it says King Charles III and Queen Camilla. It didn't say Queen Consort. Queen Consort, as I have said before, and I'm going to say again, is not a title, it is a position. So she's been called the Queen Consort, but I knew that she is Queen Camilla, and that at some point the palace was going to switch over and just call her Queen Camilla, which they are now doing. So I'm not a fortune teller. It's simply knowledge of how things are and what the reality is. In this country, a woman takes her husband's name, and if she is of an inferior or equal rank, she takes his rank. If she is of a superior rank, she retains her superior rank but takes his name. And to those of you who the word inferior and superior stick in your craws, I'm awfully sorry. These are the terms that are used to describe gradations. And it's nothing to do with some people being better than other people. It's just the proper description. And I don't want to hear from anybody that they object to the use of the terms. Those are the terms, okay? And they are not pejorative, they are simply accurate. Like the number 2 is below number 4. Below means inferior. Above means superior. So there's nothing insulting and pejorative in the use of those terms. This is just the way it is, and I don't want anybody to think that by using the accurate terms that it is somehow putting down anybody. It is not. It is just that in the gradations of rank, some ranks are below others or beneath others and therefore inferior to others. Just as how the first step on a ladder is lower than the highest step on the ladder. It's as simple as that. In Spain, Portugal, etc., a woman with a title, her husband assumes that title. For instance, the late Duchess of Alba's husband was known as the Duke of Alba. Her lost husband outlived her, so he became the Dowager Duke of Alba. That doesn't happen in England. A woman does not surrender her rank upon marriage if it is superior to a man's rank, but she does normally surrender her name and assumes his name. So for all those reasons, Queen Camilla is queen because she's married to a king. Prince Philip was a man. A man does not assume his wife's name ordinarily, nor does he assume his wife's rank. His rank is inviolate, as indeed is his name, except in very extraordinary circumstances. When, for instance, he's marrying a great heiress and a term and condition of her keeping her fortune is that he needs to assume her name. It happens in certain cases. It happened, for instance, in the Dukedom of Northumberland, because they're rarely Smithsons, but because a female, Percy, married a Mr. Smithson, incidentally linked to the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. I throw that in for good measure. I got that from the late Duke of Northumberland, who was a friend of mine, Harry Northumberland. He's the one who told me that little bit of, I suppose, knowledge. But normally, a woman when she marries a man, he retains his rank. So Queen Elizabeth's husband remained the Duke of Edinburgh. His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. He was never King Philip. The last King Philip of England was the husband of Mary Tudor, Mary the First. In those days, that's how it was done, but it's not done nowadays. So I hope that answers the question. She is not Princess Camilla, she is Queen Camilla. And he was Prince Philip, not King Philip. Shaw Roberts says, Lady C, am amused. Did anyone else notice the prominent and carefully placed scarlet pimpernel on the coronation invitation? They were the famed symbol of the literary hero Sir Percy Blakeney, monarchist extraordinaire. Fay on the Republic. I wonder if it was a subtle but bold statement, a coincidence, or a dash of dark humour on the part of our king. Shaw Roberts, well spotted. I have to say, when I was 12, I read every single one of Baroness Auxey's books on the Scarlet Pimpernel. We seek him here, we seek him there, we seek him everywhere. I loved the Scarlet Pimpernel. Well, I'm sure it's a bit of droll humour on the part of the king. Having said that, I have to tell you, and I know a lot of people think the invitation is wonderful. I think the invitation is ghastly. Sorry. I think it is cheap and vulgar and inelegant looking. Now, if people like it, they're welcome to like it. As far as I'm concerned, invitations should always be classical. They should always be correct. There is no room for inventiveness on them. Nothing looks better than a good traditional invitation, in my opinion. Now, of course, people are welcome to disagree with me. But all of that palaver, I mean, sorry. It's very contemporary, but I think it is very inelegant coming from a monarch. Having said that, it's his coronation. If he wishes to express his interests, tastes, personality, and lay down his imprimatur in the way he's done, it's his absolute right. It's also my right to think tacky, and I do. I mean, that on a mantelpiece? Sorry. No, thank you very much. Jane Arnold says, Lady C, I've heard they're looking into the monarchy's part in the slave trade. Am I the only person that is starting to feel that there is a movement to get rid of our monarchy? Jane Arnold, there's been a movement to get rid of the monarchy for many a decade. In fact, for over a century. In fact, for over 2 centuries. Well, if not over 2 centuries, since the early 19th century, there's been a movement to get rid of the monarchy. So it's nothing new. The monarchy's part in the slave trade, I think it's not only in the slave trade, I think it's in slavery itself. Because we are speaking about, I think it's £1,000 of shares that Edward Colston gave to King William III, who was an elected King of England, incidentally. He was not an heir to the throne in the first, second, or even fifth instance. His mother was a princess of England, but he was not an heir to the throne. He was married to King James II's elder daughter, who became Queen Mary II. They were invited by Parliament to sit upon her father's throne after James II was dethroned in what they call the Glorious Revolution of 1688. That is the link. The reality is, white people need to man up and woman up and just speak the truth. There was black slavery, there was brown slavery, there was white slavery, there was yellow slavery. Every color under the rainbow had slavery. From the beginning of civilization until pretty much the 19th century. Certainly until the end of the 18th century, virtually every society on earth had a form of slavery. Why is there the preposterous pretense that the only people who were enslaved were black people and that they were enslaved by white people? First of all, they weren't enslaved by white people initially. They were enslaved by their own black people, then sold to white people. So there's a tremendous racist element to all of this that is going to cause severe racial disharmony. Also, many black people in the West are mixed race. So, if, say, they're half and half, is their white half going to give to their black half? Then why is their black half not going to give to their white half? Because if you go back far enough, the Barbary pirates used to raid the shores of Cornwall and steal white people and take them back to Africa and enslave them. The whole thing needs to be debated, aired, examined in its entirety, with nobody living today feeling guilty because none of us did anything against anybody else. It's as simple as that. But the truth is, many of these institutions are so pusillanimous, they're so afraid of their shadow, they're so afraid of standing up and speaking the truth in case they alienate a few people, that they lose supporters left, right, and centre because of their cowardice, ignorance, and really stupidity. Because if you examine the subject of slavery, as I have said, it was international, practiced by all races, and the very last country on earth to abolish slavery was the African country of Mauritania, which, if it's not 100% black, is 99.9% black, in 1981. Why aren't we hearing about all of that? I rest my case. Eileen Seacrest says, Dear Lady C, Prince William's establishment of the Earthshot Prize is not only a brilliant move, it is the only such move we can really expect him to make for a long while. In establishing the prize, Prince William greatly honoured his father and grandfather. He established a prize that has the potential of identifying practices and programs that will generate, at the very least, a better understanding of how people can interact with the earth in ways beneficial to both. In establishing the prize, he endeared himself to a younger generation of subjects whose goodwill he will need to rely on throughout his reign. In my opinion, while not as spectacular as the Prince's Trust, the Earthshot Prize will be an important part of William's legacy. And do I agree? I certainly do. I think it was wonderfully imaginative of him. I think it is a profoundly desirable posture to have taken. There is no doubt that we need to respect, preserve, honour, and where possible, protect our planet and his father and grandfather, because remember, Prince Philip was one of the fathers of the ecological movement. And yes, there are aspects of the debate, let's put it that way, that have been hijacked by extremists, but the reality is, putting the extremist posturing aside, ecology is an important matter for all of humanity. We can't live on a planet that we ravish and defile and destroy. We need to preserve it. Of course, there's a lot of political nonsense, and it has to be said, pseudoscience around the subject. But shorn of all of that, it is still one of the most important duties of mankind, not only to man himself, but to the world at large, to our children's future. And yes, I agree. I do wish some of the more extreme politicization and some of the more extreme rhetoric could be shorn away. But sadly, moderation is often challenged from all directions by extremists. It's a part of the human condition. Bonita Solomon says, I live in Canada and we were led to believe Meghan's family were terrible people. Yes, Samantha and the family were slandered. There is an episode of The View where Anna Navarro calls Samantha crazy right on the show. Sue her too. Bonita Solomon, thank you for that comment. May I suggest that you contact Samantha Markle directly? I think you should, and I think you should give a witness statement to that effect. Okay? I think it would be very desirable that you do that. And I have asked Samantha to provide me with details for me to somehow pass on to those who wish to provide statements in support of her, that they can do so. I'm waiting for her to provide me with the information. That will doubtless come, hopefully sooner rather than later. Kat S. says, Dear Lady C, the Sussexes stated that 2023 was the year for reconciliation. Do you know who the Sussexes have reconciled with? Or is this statement just another of their puffs of hot air? Yes and no, actually. They said it because they seem to have been advised that they could not continue down the road that they had been taking because they had pretty much run out of road to travel, and hereafter there would be no tarmac and it would be a very bumpy ride if they continued trashing the people they had been trashing and presenting themselves as victims. So I understand that that was the basis of the narrative, that 2023 was going to be a year of reconciliation. And it was also doubtless done coldly and calculatingly and manipulatively so that they could then spin around, and say when there wasn't a reconciliation, which they knew there wouldn't be. I mean, Harry makes it pretty clear in his interviews and in his memoir, if we can call it that. I should say femoir, that he knew that there would be no reconciliation. But it's a cynical ploy to lead people to believe that there could be one, And then, of course, when there isn't one, it's not their fault. But they are rarely running out of options. They are like a designer who can't come up with any new clothes. And nobody wants the same tired old sack. So yes, they did say 2023 was going to be the year of reconciliation. And so far, has it been? And also, my understanding is that not one of their victims wants to have a thing to do with them. Nothing. They don't want to see them. They don't want to speak to them. Any interaction they have with them has got to be limited, if existent. How's that a basis for a reconciliation? And also, how do you reconcile with a viper? A viper is a viper is a viper. To paraphrase, what was her name? Gertrude Stein. A rose is a rose is a rose. Well, a viper is a viper is a viper. And on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in, because I need your input to know what you want me to address. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless. And if you have really enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and Godspeed.